Welcome to Australian Survivor Archives, the only podcast going over the complete history of Australian Survivor from Whalers Way right through to the current day. We are moving through Season 2 of Australian Survivor swimmingly. We are getting through the episode recaps and we are getting to another interview today. So excited for this one. Have to say that this is the first time that we can say we've actually had a returning guest in some capacity to this show. The backdoor pilot of Australian Survivor Archives was an episode on our sister show, the Oz Network, in which we interviewed this guest to learn a little bit about their time on Celebrity Survivor. And that kind of lit a fire, it lit a fuse in myself and my esteemed co-host to further explore the history of Australian Survivor, and thus Australian Survivor Archives was born. So I am so excited to get more into this person's time on the show, and I'm not even going to introduce her because I want my esteemed colleague to do so, because without him we wouldn't be here, and without him and that episode it wouldn't be a thing that we're even talking today. I'm going to start off by saying my name is Ben and I'm wearing waterproof mascara today.
I love how you call me your esteemed colleague, Ben. I don't know. There's something about it. This makes me feel a lot even better than I really am. But you're right about. I should introduce myself, guys. As you know, my name's Matt Dyson, and Ben, you're right. I'm excited, Ben, because you're 100% right. We've been lucky enough to interview this guest prior to today, and it's exactly why ASA was born. We after that interview, we said, like, this is so great. Like, the stuff we learned from it, we're like, you know what? We need to start all the way back from the start and just work our way through the history of Australian Survivor and just find out all the stories. So hence why we're here today doing Season 2 Celebrity Survivor. And I'm going to introduce this guest because she is one of my favourite. You may know her as an entertainment reporter. She's been on radio. She was even a bridesmaid at a famous wedding, but we don't care about that. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about her time on Celebrity Survivor. She was the fourth boot. Of course, I talk of none other than Miss Amber Petty. Amber, welcome to the show.
Hi, again. I can't believe that you had me back.
Contractually, we had to. It was kind of, you're on the list, so you sort of had to come back. So
yeah. Well, it also gives me an opportunity this time. Last time we spoke, because we spoke for a long time, but it was, I think, a bit later in the day, and I polished off a bottle of red wine, and I had multiple ciggies, and I don't drink red wine anymore. I still have a few ciggies now and again, but yeah, this is the more, I'm going to be more fresh and probably less loose this time. Well, who knows?
Well,
I don't need alcohol to be loose. So
one thing you do, well, you probably might need, I actually will say, Amber, I brought with me today a box of tissues. We did make you cry last time, so we've got these on hand ready to go, okay? Just an emergency box of tissues.
You know what? No, I think I'll be all right. I think, you know what, and not to start on a major downer, but ever since my dad died a couple of years ago, I find that when I drink, I become a crying drunk. And do you know what? I was never like that before. Like, I was like, I just didn't cry, and I especially didn't do drunk cries. But I just find now, like, I can be talking to a friend and I might have had 2 glasses of wine and we get onto a particular subject and I can find myself crying. And then I start laughing because I just think how pathetic I've become. Anyway.
Wow. You took the one time I made a guest cry away from me, Amber. Thanks for that. You know, I'm going to throw these away.
I was going to say that. That's the one thing I do remember, Ben, that you said it's the first time you've ever made anyone cry during a podcast.
Moment taken away. Within, what are we, 3 minutes into this interview? Jesus, hey, Amber, why are you back?
Amber, I'll let you know, he tries to make me cry every episode by telling me how shit of a Survivor player I am. So, I mean, he tries to. He hasn't been successful yet, but...
No, be very stoic and just rise above whatever crap he gives you.
Again, he made the game. He made it. That's all he has to say. He's at least I made it, and I'm shut down, instantly. I appreciate that you thought I had played last time, Amber. You kept saying in that interview, like, "Oh, Ben, how did you go when you played?" I'm like, yeah, I won. Yeah, I'm regarded as the best Australian Survivor player of all time. That's me.
Well, I'm sure I said probably multiple times last time that, I may have actually physically played the game myself, but I never watched Survivor. I couldn't think of anything worse. I don't like the show.
Neither does anyone listening to this. That's why they listen to Australian Survivor Archives. I don't know what they're listening to.
Yeah, I've offended every person that's going to listen to this from here on in. Sorry, everyone. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with me. I just don't like it. I didn't like watching. I didn't like watching the things that I ended up doing, and I didn't like doing the things I ended up watching myself back doing. Anyway.
Well, Amber, hopefully by the end of this interview, you're chanting most soap, most soap, most soap.
I might need a drink. If I do, it's probably because I've ended up going and getting a bottle of red wine.
I think we need to get that emergency, bugger the tissues. We need like this emergency wine ready to go. I will say though, one thing that did stay with me since your last time talking to us, Amber, you said you and I've got this written down word for word. You said to Matt and I, "You are the cutest. I like you too." And I have to say, nicest thing anyone's ever said to Matt and I since we've been, recording together. So, lots of David Oldfield's not going to be saying that in a few weeks' time. So you can hold the candle over David still after all these years.
David Oldfield reached out to me on social media recently. It must have been because you've put a rocket of nostalgia up his bottom.
Yeah, wow. What did he say? What does Mr. Oldfield say?
Not much. Just sort of a, "Hi, Amber, how you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, bloody hell, it's David."
That guy. I remember him. He stabbed me in the back. He broke his word. Screw him.
Oh, there's that guy that I slept with one night in the wet sand with 3 other guys.
Yes, that one time.
Don't say that about. Well, I was going to 3 guys.
I was going to say though, if you're going to spend your last night on a Vanuatu beach playing Survivor, I mean, who else better than David Oldfield, Elton Flatley, and of course Justin Melby? I mean, what a trio!
Well, I could come up with 3 or 4 more names if you want, but let's stick to the stars of this one. Yes, you're right, Matt.
Yes.
Amazing.
In our chat last time, you sort of went over a little bit on how you got on the show, and I sort of, it was a great story, kind of learning and everything that made you accept it. I don't think we really want to go too much over that. If people want to hear sort of that full story, by all means, listen to the interview that we did with Amber over on the Oz Network. But I'd love to remember. Do you remember the journey to Vanuatu at all? Do you remember kind of seeing other players? Were you familiar with some of these guys? Had you bumped into them through your career, sort of that and sort of stuff? And what were you thinking about some of the people that you were going to be playing Survivor with?
Yeah. Good question. I don't think I knew any of them. I mean, of course I knew of some of them. I knew of Imogen Bailey. Of course I knew who Guy was. Didn't know much about Gabrielle Richens. Knew that Wayne was incredibly successful, although not that I was a mad sort of motorcycle racing person, but I knew that he was very successful and very internationally successful. David Oldfield, of course, I did know about because I wasn't a major fan of his or Pauline's. Elton I didn't know anything about. But I do remember on the plane, it was interesting because I felt Imogen was very reserved, and because we ended up quite close, but my initial hesitations about everybody in the bunch was about Imogen, I have to say, because I just saw her as she was very beautiful, very perfect, and I knew her job was all about everything being perfect, and I never sort of felt like that kind of perfect girl, and a part of me also didn't really want to, I just sort of I'm a bit like vanity. I mean, it's not really something I want to focus on too much. So, and also she probably made me a bit nervous on that, in that, just she'd exposed me kind of for being a little bit more rough around the edges. But I did end up having probably the longest chat with Wayne Gardner, and I think we really kind of bonded nicely. I thought he was very smart. I thought he was a very nice, very humble guy, and we kind of had a bit of a similar sense of humour. So my memories was really bonding and being surprised that of everybody, it was sort of Wayne and I that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, because that was prior to starting the game, was it?
That's on the flight over to Vanuatu. Yeah. Yes, because we didn't. Yeah, so we kind of met at the airport, and I didn't know these people, and also I did, and obviously we're going to talk about how I ended up on the show. I definitely knew that I was the last person in. I probably very much felt like I was the one person that was the afterthought. I felt probably not probably, 100% the least.
There was one more, Amber. We'll get to him. Don't worry.
Okay. But I probably just sort of felt like the kind of the poor cousin of these bunch of sort of celebrities, or that kind
Were you aware that Dicko was the host at that point? And I mean, I'm sure you, based on your career, you surely would have crossed paths with Dicko leading up into that.
No, I really hadn't, because I hadn't done radio, so I wasn't really in that world. So I hadn't come across. I mean, obviously Dicko was pretty at the height of his sort of fame, I think, even before that. So I was aware of him, but I don't really remember kind of like ever meeting him. So no, Dicko wasn't something I knew about either, or I hadn't met.
What was your thoughts then when you're out there and you're realizing that he's Dicko, the host of Survivor? And I mean, do you have any memories of kind of some fun with Dicko out there?
Definitely. I think it's funny because I think even though Dicko is very expressive and, he's got a big personality, I think from what I kind of have learnt about him, and I felt like I picked that up pretty early on, that actually he might have a lot of bravado and, he might kind of look like he's sort of keen on himself or confident sometimes. But actually my take on him was that I think he felt very much like he wasn't worthy of that role. I think he felt sort of very blessed to have that role. He was very, very humble and really, he was really lovely. And I don't know, I think he was on a bit of a personal journey at the same time. And I just, I guess my take on him, because once we were on the island, or before we started or after we started, we went to a couple of local bars, and Dicko was sort of always there, sort of just there and having he's a bit of a party boy, or he was, he likes people. And he just always seemed very, very humble. And I don't know, there was something that I felt that, in terms of my sense of feeling a little bit unworthy, I felt like there was something I could connect with Dicko, even though, of course, in terms of media, he was certainly very successful and had no reason to doubt himself. But he definitely, I think it was a big thing for him to be part of such a big brand being Survivor.
One thing I'm going to hold this up to the camera right now for our viewers on YouTube, and also we'll share this on our social media, probably have during the week. One of these images I tracked down when you search for Amber Petty is a picture of you and Dicko, and it's also actually Holly Brisley, I believe, is the other one there. You're at an event here. Do you remember this picture at all? Do you remember this event?
I don't remember the event, but no, I don't.
I think it's saying here that it's from the TV Turns 50 photo call. So I don't know if this was around Celebrity Survivor, or this is kind of, you were there because you were on the show with him, or just you happened to be there and it was a coincidence that there you are with the guy who was bossing you around. I don't know.
Are you alleging that Dicko and I had an affair?
Of course I am, Amber. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought we'd managed to get most of that removed from the internet, but you've obviously found a rogue shot.
We do our research here at ASA.
It depends on how much wine was getting drunk at this bar, and you said.
Well, I can tell you back in those days, I did tend to, if I went to an event like that, I did tend to need to have, and sometimes more champagne than I needed to get my energy up and my kind of confidence up. But no, I think at that time, because obviously I think, he was signed to Channel 7, and, we were, it's like the Married at First Sight or whatever, whatever the latest thing that, a network is invested in, they invite you to certain things, and then at some point all the invitations stop coming. So whatever that was, I do remember a big night. In fact, I don't remember wearing that, but I do remember being invited. It was either the same thing or another night, although I think this other night was actually much more dressy, but I sat on the same table as Chris Hemsworth, and God, what a nice bloke he is.
Wow. Just name dropping, Amber. I like this.
I know. Oh, I mean, if you can drop it.
Absolutely. That was Home and Away, Chris Hemsworth, right?
I go down to get a bottle of milk and I'll manage to weave that into the. Last time I dated this man was when I was with bloody Chris Hemsworth.
Let's be honest, Amber, though. He's not as cute as a couple of ASA podcast hosts here.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You
Didn't call him the cutest and that you like him, did you? See? In your face, Chris Hemsworth.
No.
Thor. No, I don't know if I'm going to get... You did actually tell us on your last interview, Amber, that you did maybe have a bit of a relationship with one of the production crew. So it's Dicko. You finally confirmed it. It is Dicko.
I'm thinking, Jesus, what did I say? Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. But no, it wasn't Dicko.
Damn it.
I don't know whether you were a home and away girl, but what was it like when you get to the Vanuatu and, of course, Nicole Dixon being... But did you know, like, obviously she was so famous for playing Bobby in Home and Away, but it sounds like maybe you weren't a home and away person?
No, I can't stand... Oh, okay. I don't. I was about to
Say it. Finish it. You've started. You may as well finish it.
That's a broader statement than I am now going to. I'm not interested in the home and aways or neighbours or that Australian kind of like suburban stuff. I just don't find it interesting. It's like, I'm in the burbs. Like, I don't need to go and watch the burbs. No, but of course I knew who Nicole was because she'd been on the show for so long and she was so likable. And she's, I guess, if you want to sort of, you would describe her as a sort of iconic TV, what do we call it? Drama?
Yeah, soapy.
Yeah.
And she was just instantly, like, there was just not, like someone that's been famous and in the public eye for as long as Nicole has, there's every chance. I mean, I've met a lot of celebrities. I worked in the music industry and, there is the chance that a lot of them can be, a bit, they've had a lot of people telling them they're fantastic. They lived in a real bubble. People come up to them all the time. But she was just so humble and just the most normal and sweet and gorgeous and funny and decent humans. I just adore her. I wish I had have stayed in touch with her. She's just gorgeous.
We on our first season coverage, there was a player called Lance, and we basically called him the nicest man in the world. We've dubbed Nicole the female Lance. She's basically the nicest female on the planet. And the opening episode, there's a great scene. We shared it on our social media. I think from memory you commented on it, where it was you and her searching for water, and basically you're going, oh, here we are looking for Mount Franklin. Of course this is the water. Here it is right there in front of you. I mean, do you remember sort of like those moments when you're out there trying to search for this and you're getting to bond with her at that moment?
You guys have just unearthed the greatest stuff and memories that I have so forgotten about, that when I see your feed and your Insta stories coming up, I'm like, oh my God, what have they found now? And that was, I had forgotten about that moment where, like it must have been the first day or two, and, supposedly we're going off to look for water. And literally in my mind, I just thought, oh, we're on this island. There must be this massive mountain somewhere, or at least a mountain, you know what I mean? And so I'm looking, I kept just sort of looking up, and I'm like, there's nothing really sort of rising above any of these, trees. And then, of course, we get to this piss-weak little, creek or trickle of something. And then Nicole sort of, brought it to my attention. It's like, well, hang on, maybe this is it. And I'm like, oh, shit. Everything has been a disappointment so far. Of course that's it. And, yes, I did and I was waiting for a sponsorship from Mount Franklin Water after
Didn't come, sadly?
They must have got a digit wrong in my number, because no, never.
Damn it.
Amber, I thought you must have been getting a sponsorship with like mascara, because of course that was your luxury item.
Oh yeah, it's still my luxury item.
Well, we're glad that you brought it for this episode. Let's point that way.
Did you and Nicole do some promotions for? Was it you that for Olay Effects and stuff?
We did.
Yes.
Oh my God, I wish you'd stop doing your research so well. Yes, because, oh my God, we did too. Please don't find that and post that.
I was going to ask you if you had a copy, because we can't find it.
We want it.
You know what? I blocked that out because part of the ad was to come on all fresh-faced. I'm like, oh, can we get over this fresh-face crap? Stop it. They must have offered me some money. So I said, oh, God, I guess everyone knows how basic I can look. So, let's take the money and run and then just delete it from our memories. So yes, you're right. We did get offered a few things. It was funny. After the show, Imogen, Nicole and I did quite a few things. We did some really nice photo shoots and, we got a bit of stuff together, I think, just because we had our nice little girly friendship.
Wow, we got so much digging. We had there was a player last season who revealed that he had been on Wheel of Fortune, that he had been in KFC ads, and these are things that our research department here at ASA are still trying to uncover. So we've got more to find. Like you were our last hope for this, but clearly you want to block it out. So now we have to find it even more.
Ben, I'm busy trying to track down Ben Wynn, so you're going to have to cut me some slack here.
Yeah. See, I guarantee you, if Anna Kournikova had been on and we were talking to Anna Kournikova right now, I mean, we'd have plenty of ads to show about her, wouldn't we?
You would, but, she wouldn't be a lot of things that I'm going to be.
Amber, you did mention before about taking the money and run. So, I mean, we have to talk about this, obviously, about you getting on the show. It's such a fantastic story. And to think that you could have maybe not been a part of it would have been an absolute shame for the show, because I think you were brilliant on the show. But we did speak to David Mason about it. But if you can just tell our listeners again about what actually went down with you getting on the show, then almost not getting on the show, and then obviously ending up there.
Okay, so this is my memory of it. And you've got to remember that obviously this was a long time ago. But essentially, I had a manager called Mark Clemens who, managed lots of much bigger celebrities than me. And he called me one day and he said, we've had an offer and some interest in you to be on Celebrity Survivor. And I'm like, what? But I'm not really a celebrity. He's like, well, no. Some people think you are. And they said, the producers of this show certainly think you are. And I said, right, okay, but I'm not going on as like the royal bridesmaid. So you got that's just that's not happening. And he said, that's fine. We can call you an entertainment reporter and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I kind of said, I'm really going to have to think about this because, I just thought, I'm going to get so bagged, like doing something where I'm saying I'm a celebrity. So I was really worried about that. And of course, I knew that the bigger part of my public persona was, being known as being in a royal as a royal bridesmaid in a wedding. And so I just kind of, I was very insecure and, I'd copped a lot of crap in the press. So I was really kind of aware that, I'd be walking into more, bad press or just, stuff that was difficult. So, and plus I just thought, as I said, I don't like this show. I don't do outdoors and just roughing it and shit and, and I don't do bloody water sports. I don't do any of that stuff. So there's pretty much nothing about this show that I want to do, except I would like some money.
That's fair enough.
Point. Yep.
I'm trying to be honest here. Anyway, so I literally said, in my memory, I took, however long, like it feels like a week to think about it. And then I finally, literally, I don't think I slept for the whole time I was thinking about it. And I had to go back to my manager and I said, okay, I'm going to do it, but can you just get the best price? And I can't remember if I, said anything else. And he said, yep, no problem. So then I kind of clicked into, okay, this is happening. And I just, beginning that kind of like coaching myself through it, the anxieties, the flashes of just, everyone hating me and all of this awful stuff, drowning. And then literally, and again, my memory, 2 days or a day before, I'm literally packed. I'm packed. I'm staying at a friend's place at the time. I'm packed to go to this bloody thing. I've got my mascara as my one item. I've got all of these sort of things. Had the checklist, the contract. And then my manager rings me and says, sorry. Oh, no, that's right. Hang on. That's right. The reason why I'd been invited on the show was because Anna Kournikova was supposed to be coming and then something had happened personal. And so she had decided that she didn't want to do it. So this is only a couple of weeks out from the show. So then I've gone, oh, okay. So then all of that unfolded. Then, after I'm like packed and everything and I'm ready, to fly out in a day or two, the manager rings me back and says, Anna Kournikova is now back on and so you don't need to go. And I'm like, are you I have just torn myself apart internally trying to get myself psyched up for this. And now you're telling me that, sorry, this must be a week out. You're telling me that it was all for nothing. And I was so pissed off and I was hurt and I did feel quite discarded. But then, of course, 24 hours before the stinking, flight was due to take off, she apparently doesn't turn up at the airport or something at her end. And so the manager rings me back and says, right, they want you back. And I went, what a bunch of wankers, like, seriously. And I said, well, you go and get lots more money from them because this
I love it.
I said, lucky I haven't even unpacked because I've been so pissed off. And I just said, well, if you can come back to me with a much better offer, I might as well do it because I haven't even outsunk myself out of, doing it. I'm just in rage at the moment, so we might as well just bloody well go. So
I think you got more money than Fiona from what we've and I think even Kim Johnson. I can't remember what Kim said. We've been asking. We've kept our promise to you. We're asking everyone, and I definitely know you got more than what Fiona told us that she got.
I think from memory, from your original interview, I think what you were going to get at the start was basically around what everyone else or from the people we've spoken to were going to get. So you did end up, obviously, because of that happened, they chucked on a bit of extra, a bit of a sweetener,
Anacornicova money.
Well, I'm pretty sure Anna Kournikova was going to get the same as everyone collectively. But yes. Well, isn't that beautiful? The least celebrity ends up with the most money.
So Ben Wynn must have gotten like $100,000.
Oh, Ben Wynn would have got $100. He probably had to pay $100.
He had to pay $100 to get on the show.
So Amber, we've interviewed David Mason. He was the first interview of our season this year, and of course we asked him about the Anna Kournikova situation. So we basically got to the bottom of it. So what he said is, you're right in the fact that they were wanting her on the show. They were looking for like a really big name to be on the show. Obviously, an overseas person. Everyone obviously knew who Anna Kournikova was. Obviously being extremely good-looking tennis player, all that. I think it was not that I'm saying
ridiculous.
Comparable. It's all right.
As I think I told you last time, my dad said I'd bump you for Anna Kournikova. I said, me too, Daddy.
There's only one problem, though. She only wanted to be in 3 episodes. So the deal was, yes, so you're probably hearing this for the first time, Amber. So the deal was they were going to pay her a crap load of money, but she would only do 3 episodes. She would be voted out and go home and get her payday. And in the end, they just couldn't justify that. And that was their reasoning for not going with her in the end, is that they needed her for more than 3 episodes. Obviously, they would have had to do a dodgy to make out that she'd only last 3 and then get her voted out, and that was going to not be with the show. So in the end, that's why. So she wasn't prepared to do the whole season.
So it wasn't. So okay. So what we're having confirmed here is that I was lied to, which wasn't the first time I'd been lied to by this particular manager I speak about, and interesting, but also completely unethical. And I am very surprised. I would be surprised to know, let's say, that Mark Burnett would have known that they were making those kind of little dodgies, because from my understanding, Mark Burnett and his team were very, very concerned about the brand staying with the integrity of the brand, and there's no integrity in that.
Well, I think in all fairness to David Mason, I think in the end that's why he didn't do it, is because he didn't want to take it to that, because it would have brought the game into disrepute, I guess. The fact that we can't just have someone that's deliberately getting voted out just because she wants to get. So in the end, in credit to David, that he did end up nipping it in the bud and saying, well, no, we can't have this. And obviously you were prepared to be there for the whole show. And look, and in the end, we're happy that all happened because we got you on the show. But
David must have been excited in the end, though, like going, but you know what? Like, we got to have the petty in the end.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Well, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been bloody Ben Wynn. Oh, wait, he was on the show.
Do you know what happened with Ben? Do you know the Ben Wynn story, Amber? Why he was on the show? What was he actually doing on Celebrity Survivor?
I don't remember. because it was a little bit like this dual existence where there was one side of the island and then there was this other, and then there was our side of the island. So no, I never really understood what he was. I just remember he was like an SAS guy. He was big and buffy, and I thought, well, shit, he's going to bloody, he could probably build a hotel on this island. So this would be nice if he ends up on our team. And then suddenly he was gone. I didn't understand it. No.
So did you see him prior to the game starting, or was it not until that challenge where he was the reward part of the challenge, and that's the first time that you'd actually seen him?
To be honest, I can't be sure about that. I vaguely remember seeing him, and I can't remember whether that was on or off the show. I mean,
obviously, I know you never actually played with him because he only lasted the one episode and he was on Kakula. But yeah, it's just, look, we're still trying to track it down. Obviously, we're just trying to get to the bottom of that, as we did with the Anna Kournikova story. But
that's awesome that you found out about that. I love that.
I would love to talk about Fiona because we know you two had your moments on the show, and I don't think we really covered it last time we spoke to you. But we've spoken to Fiona since we last spoke to you. And Fiona actually was nothing but complimentary to you, Amber. Fiona said that she had a great relationship with you and that she enjoyed her time with you. Can you back that up? Do you feel the same for Fiona? I mean, was there a little bit more to it out there, or did it just come down to the edit that they just showed the worst bits between you two, that maybe you two actually did get along and the conflict was shown to create some good television?
Well, to be honest, like just going back a bit in terms of like, you asked before about did I know about the celebrities and I should have mentioned about Fiona because to be honest, I mean, she was actually the most impressive to me in terms of me knowing her a few years before or 10 years before, because I used to work in the music industry. So she used to obviously have her band Def FX.
Yeah.
And she also used to go out with the lead singer of the Mavises. And so,
wow, there's a name that hasn't been mentioned since 1999. The Mavises. There's our closing song, man. I think we need to track down a Mavises song and play the. Wow.
Oh, they were beautiful. So
they were.
Really quirky, interesting music and just
Cry. Was that song Cry? Sorry to interrupt you. What was that? Let me on a high. Yeah, there's our closing song. Sorry. Yeah. Wow. Last one passed.
I feel really awkward here. I have no idea what band you're talking about.
My sister loved them. My sister was like in love with them. So she used to play that song to death. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were big in the early 90s. But anyway, so I just remember, I mean, obviously I was aware of Fiona and there wasn't a lot of, I mean, it's still, surprisingly difficult, I think, or it certainly was difficult for female leads of bands to be taken seriously with their music and whatever. So I remember her, I mean, she was unbelievably sexy. Like they had the incredible body. It was very beautiful. And she was the lead singer and played guitar, and she was a proper rock chick. Or you shouldn't even need to put chick next to it, a proper lead rock, rock star. And so I'd always thought she was amazing. And I remember being at probably the Big Day Out or something and seeing her there, or maybe it was a Mavis's gig, but, seeing her there with, Matt from the Mavis's, who was her boyfriend. And I was very, very impressed with her. I thought she was super, super cool. So I obviously hadn't forgotten that once we were doing Survivor. So I went, but also what I liked about Fiona is that, I'm, very interested in witchcraft and she was obviously way ahead of me in doing that and obviously being that and living that and becoming sort of famous, for being a white witch. So there was, the rock star and the witchcraft to me is a lot of really what I'm interested in, what I'm about as myself. But obviously I was, it was sort of before I, got into the spiritual and the witchcraft. So in terms of us, we did get on the show for sure. Where I was just a bit sort of challenged and second guessed our relationship was when she took me for a walk to go down to the one of the creeks or something, and she sort of suggested, oh, maybe we should sort of, get in there sort of a bit sort of like sirens, or, like get our tops off and get in. And of course, as if that's not going to end up on the, an episode and a promo. I mean, nothing by that stage had really happened. I felt like, Jesus, they're going to be pushing shit uphill, creating a TV show from what seems to be going on around us, just going, I can't fish, I can't do this, no food, I can't, what are we getting, how do
that
we...
That one clip of you about wanting food, what do I have to do around here to get some food? They play that about 20 times.
That's because that's what I was doing 24/7. I mean, that's all that was going on. So when I went down there and she suggested that, I could sense that she knew how to work it, in terms of getting coverage. And I might have been wrong. And now that I look back on it, I'm pretty sure that I was judging her that in a way that might not have been fair. But I felt like she took the weakest link that wouldn't really know what she was up to and might have been a bit naive. And so I felt a little bit kind of like, you're treating me a bit like a dickhead here. So that was sort of one area that I was not happy about. And then there was an incident where she was a bit she was a little bit older than me, and I was probably the second eldest from memory. And so she was a bit of that sort of mother henny type in that, I remember her waking us up at like 5 o'clock. No, it wouldn't have even been 5. That was bloody asleep in, some ungodly hour to start having a crack at who's not covering up the fruit or something in the fruit
flies. Yeah.
I just thought, oh, shit, give me a break. I've had about 4 minutes sleep. Do I give a shit about fruit flies or who hasn't covered the fruit? So there was sort of a moment where she was pushing my patience. But then, of course, I ended up being the one to sort of vote her off, which came as a surprise. And to be quite honest, I felt very bad about that. And I have always felt that she probably held a lot of animosity for me because I cut short her experience. And I felt that she was, like the others, and I'm not just saying her, like many of the others, really wanting every second of this new ignited experience, but also opportunity for fame again. So I thought that would have cut very deeply. But hearing that she hasn't sort of slagged me off, I probably should know better, because actually, with all her stuff, with all her kind of spirituality and her white witch beliefs, I should know better that she wouldn't carry stuff like that, and she'd probably see me more for what I am. So it's really interesting to hear that, because
she mentioned that she was very upset that she was voted out. She took it hard and all that sort of stuff. But I kind of want to take this moment to say how well I think the season is edited, even more so now, particularly hearing you, Amber, say that you're thinking at this point, shit, they've not got a show here. I mean, we've been nothing but complimentary in the first 4 episodes about how well this season is edited, particularly the way they took these very brief moments between you and Fiona and turn it into basically a strong enough edit to give you a reason to vote her out. And it's kind of interesting to hear the truth from both of you that really there wasn't a whole lot there, because from memory serves me right, there was also a lot in the press, wasn't there? Like New Idea, all these sort of people were saying that you were all against Fiona and that you hated her, and like wasn't there a lot of press at the time, basically in the gossip mags, about your relationship, that you two hated each other?
I think they did definitely make a big deal about it. Look, I do, also remember probably there was sort of a little bit of a collective feel that, and look, I can't remember specifics, but I do remember that Fiona wasn't seeing things quite like we were. And so for that, and because it was sort of, it wasn't the easiest of circumstances, I feel that she might have sort of tired us a little bit, that, if you really want to say, oh, was it, who was the sort of black sheep of the camp, for a little while there, it probably was her. But, also, like, I'm a very expressive person, and I use a lot of analogies, and I also use some language that sounds more dramatic than it actually is. And I quite like that, because I think it's, gives a sense of ridiculous. So, me saying something about heads will roll, sounds like quite a threat. And I said that in relation to something that Fiona did, which of course I wasn't trying to say something specifically that would end up in a promo, but as I said, to me it felt like it was a little bit boring at times. And then of course if one comes out and says, they're pissed off and heads will roll, naturally I say that they will pluck that.
With that vote for Fiona, we see just before Tribal that David Oldfield and Elton take you into the bush, obviously, to have a chat to you about voting Fiona off. David Oldfield, especially out of those two, he seemed to be the one that was really coming up with the ideas. He was really keen to stay. He really wanted to play this game. But do you remember when they took you into the bush? Like, did they have to try very hard to get you to vote for Fiona, or was it basically a done deal when they said that they were going to vote for her?
Actually, as I think I said last time we chatted, there's when you ask certain questions, of course, there's memories that just pop up that I would, that are not just sort of sitting there for me to access. But yes, I do remember that. I guess what you've got to remember is I didn't really know. I hadn't spent a lot of time with David or Elton. And obviously David, he knows how to play politics, and Elton wasn't, was very much a sort of a little bit of a neutral personality. So when they took me in there and did this, look, here's what's going to make for a more pleasant experience. Because to be honest, my whole game plan at the time was just, how can we make today more pleasant than yesterday? I was just bullshit. I was so hopeless. And, in terms of everyone else is gunning in their mind. Probably not people like Nicole and, a couple of people. She was probably a bit more like me, and that's like, oh, we'll see what happens. But yes, in my mind, it was a little bit more like, how can we remove some angst from the, what'll be the next 24 hours? And of course it felt like an easy sell because there'd been a couple of days of, unrest with Fiona. And I was feeling a little bit kind of claustrophobic in that situation. So very quickly that made me kind of go, okay, well, if someone's got to go, I don't have a big enough reason for you to go, David, you, Elton. And, of course, I thought Justin Melvey was my mate, and that was one of my biggest mistakes.
Well, as you called him last time, a very basic actor. I've made sure to write that down as a quote. But
well, look, I will. I won't blame the red wine on that. All I know. Look, I probably don't know enough about his body of work. And again, he obviously did very well on Home and Away, and that wasn't my thing. So the only thing that I'd sort of seen is a couple of clips of General Hospital, and everyone's like a shit actor on that. And I just remember looking across the fire and seeing him pull a couple of those, those bloody General Hospital or Days of Our Lives faces. And I just went, oh my God, he's doing that for airtime. Like the smoke was coming up, he was prodding the fire, he's keeping his girls warm. And I just thought, oh, wow.
Can I think and this is definitely one for our video people right now. If you're listening to this on our audio one, please go to YouTube right now. But can we all give this Justin Melby General Hospital, the whole lock off, Amber, you're gonna live, but my cousins come back and they've got AIDS. Staring in there, Matt.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, look at that. I'm in wow, you've got this. You've hung out with Justin Melby too much.
Like I'm in my own world, but I'm not. I'm locked and loaded. I'm aware that my eyes are starting to water, and I've got to hang on if I want my moment.
You do. It's that intense.
Because we're going to ad break after that face.
Exactly. I'd love to just backtrack a little bit, in terms of obviously Fiona goes. That's after the swap. And, ultimately you side, as we said, with Elton and David, poor subpar actor, very basic actor, Justin Melvy's off, by himself. If I always like to play a hypothetical, and again, you might not remember this, so by all means, tell me if you don't, but Moso lose the first challenge, Kim Johnson goes home. She essentially votes for herself. It's a 6-0 vote. Had Moso lost the next challenge, Imogen was a potential target in that first one, but ultimately went to Kim. Fiona was making some waves. Do you believe that Fiona would have gone next had you stayed as the girls, or do you think Imogen still would have been in trouble as the next person to go?
Oh God! Now I'm required to remember a lot more about the game tactics than I remember. So look, what I will say is, it would have been interesting if Fiona had stayed and gone up more against Imogen, because Imogen is a real deep thinker. She's very determined. She's smart enough to be strategic. So she really kind of like, I think there was, I don't think Imogen was in any way a threat for quite a long way until a point. And then she knew she could sniff that moment, and she really seized it in a superstar way. But Fiona's determination, and also, I mean, I don't know, maybe she might have been better with reading the boys and playing them, because she's probably a pretty intuitive person, you know, on the whole. I think she got a bit distracted with the cameras and stuff. But look, I don't know. Anything to do with tactics and those details of remembering.
We'll scrap all those questions, Em. It's all good. That cuts half the questions. It's pretty...
Right, yeah.
One thing I will say, though, about Imogen is be careful how she's Queen Imogen on this show, Amber. So I know you were dubbed Queen Amber out there on Vanuatu. We discussed that last week, that you were referred to, but I didn't. Like, you've kind of got the royal connection. I get it, but no, sorry. Imogen, Queen Imogen. Just be careful how you refer to her. Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. She was a superstar on it. She was amazing. And for a little pint-sized little rocket, she was queen of the island in the end, for sure.
One follow-up to I also have to ask, I mentioned Kim Johnson, of course, before. We had her on a couple of weeks ago, and her luxury item was a 1,000-thread sheet. And it was left behind, and she's trying to, one of our jobs, we've got two mysteries that we're going to say, well, three, Ben win. We'll get to the other mystery, but do you remember, like, what happened to that sheet? Did you guys hang on to it? Like, do you remember kind of the journey of that sheet after Kim left?
The journey of that sheet. I don't remember the journey of that sheet. I only remember the opening scene of that sheet, because I do remember distinctly that she brought that, because of course I was sort of very quickly, red-faced, having to admit that I bought this bloody mascara, and of course she bought the sheet, and Imogen bought this, flick knife, and blah blah blah. Anyway, so I remember making some lame-ass joke to sort of try and kind of like excuse myself, saying, oh, you can use my mascara, upright, and we can make a tent from Kim's sheet, and of course that fell on deaf ears. So I don't know what happened to that sheet.
Well, it was a funny story. So Kim told us that, she brought this sheet that she was going to wrap herself up, try to keep herself warm. And then like on day one, Fiona being Fiona, she's just like, oh, great, we can lie on that, takes it off her, puts it down, and everyone lies on. But she said throughout the show, like it obviously stayed on there. And it was just a bit of a running joke of whatever happened to the 1,000-thread Egyptian cotton sheet that she...
Yeah. Well, I reckon, did you ask Fiona?
Don't know if we did.
We failed at our job there, didn't we, Matt?
It did.
Jeez.
You are reminding me. It was unfortunately, I think, Fiona's what we perceived as a bit of bossiness until you're reminding me with that incident. I'll have that by doing it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the sort of shadow side of, I don't know what star sign she is, but she's, could be an Aries or a Leo or a fire sign like, I am. And I think, that there is a real upside for a woman like that. It's very warrior, but on the other side, some people can perceive it as bossy. And I think that's where that sort of landed. But, I don't know about the sheet.
We'll find out. We've still got plenty more to cover with that one. Do you remember with the challenges? We had fun last week with the Weekend at Bernie's challenge, the Weekend at Amber's challenge, when you're getting dragged through all the obstacles in the ocean. I had a lot of fun putting our graphic together last week with the Weekend at Bernie's reference. Do you remember that challenge, getting dragged around?
So was that a challenge where
in the water?
You remember? Well, I remember feeling like Weekend at Bernie's, most of the time, because anything to do with the water, I was honestly trying not to die, or I think there was a few times where I had actually died. But no, what was it?
You were attached to like the rope, and then they had to like go and then in and out, and the guys were like throwing you over things, bringing in, and then you were literally like a rag doll, like Weekend at Bernie's.
That was actually horrific, and I'm still angry about that. And it was dangerous, and it was bullshit. And I don't know whether my boobs came out. I felt like my boobs were just popping out all the time. That was just atrocious. I mean, I'd rather go and get beaten up on a Saturday night than ever do that again.
Well, you did straight away after that, Wood. Your confessional said that had I known that this was going to happen, I would have swum all the way back to Sydney, and that would have been less torturous than that challenge.
And I stand by that. That was horrific. I actually think I've got PTSD from that.
Well, do I need to get those tissues all of a sudden, man? We need to quickly go get them. Or the emergency wine. Do we need to quickly...
No. It's no, I'm still in shock about that, so I'm not ready to cry about it.
The challenge, the same episode, the immunity challenge, which ultimately Moso lose, which sends you to tribe where you get voted out, was the balance beam challenge. And David, because you all had to sort of shuffle across, get around you to put the quoits, as we've discovered they were called, on this hook. Now, David Oldfield fell in about 18,000 times. He got past you every single time, but then he got to Justin and Elton and kind of things there. Do you remember that at all? You remember getting frustrated? And also, was there any talk of like, David, like go to the end, like let me go first because you're just letting us down?
No, I don't recall too much of that. Like it's funny. It's like, I mean, so how long ago was it now?
15 years.
15 years.
And plus, Amber, let's be honest, once you got voted out, you were just counting that extra cash you got from you said, you're like, my job's done, baby, I'm out of here.
Did you ever watch Anacorna Cobra after that with your money in your hand going, sucker?
Oh, yeah, I definitely did, because I reckon whatever I got was just like so much more than her and Enrique Iglesias.
Yeah, her and Enrique Iglesias laying on their 20,000 thread Egyptian cotton sheets.
Come and borrow some money from me, guys, anytime you want.
Your face, Anna. Australian Open next year. Hey, Anna, you suck. Look at my cash.
You're sucking now, Anna.
I wonder if Fiona would have tried to take Anna Kournikova down to the water hole there and try to get her to strip off. That would have been interesting.
Oh,
wow.
Probably would have. And you know what? I probably just should have taken it as a compliment. But I was, as I said, I had a lot of insecure dialogue and paranoia.
So Amber, Ben and I had a bit of a joke about this the other week when we were recapping that episode, and we were saying how awkward it would have been to say me and Ben were on the show together, and he takes me down to the water hole, and next second he's just strips off naked, and he's just got his slug just staring me right in the face, like what would I have done? And we tried to put ourselves in that same situation of what it would have been if it was me and Ben there.
Exactly. Well, and it would have also been really awful because you would have been like, after the show it finished, you'd be sitting there going, oh God, we're going to get our nudes. We're going to get, we're going to be the stars of this episode. And they, would have ended up on the cutting room floor probably.
But the beauty of that scene though is that like, the way I don't think it's edited that way. It's just your reaction. Here's Amber, it's all hanging out. Fiona. Thank you. All hanging out, free as a bird. She's having this deep, meaningful, conversation about strategy. You got this like awkward look after, like, oh yeah, yep, this is not awkward at all.
Oh my God, have you got that footage?
Oh, absolutely. We
I would love to see it.
Yeah, it's
so funny because I was just like, oh, this is so awkward. Like, what is going? I am not to get my top off and swan around like bloody, what's the name out of Sirens? That was, I think that just falls under the banner of, you've backed the wrong horse, Fiona.
Wow. Yeah. No, well, it's entertaining. That's all. And the only time that we've seen full frontal female nudity, we've seen reared male nudity on Australian Survivor. But, yeah. Oh, no, we saw reared. We saw, of course, Shona's butt on season 1. But the night you go home, ultimately, Justin's a bit shitty. He's, upset that you ultimately flipped him on the last time. So he's going to side with David and Elton. Did you know you were going home, or you didn't give a shit? You were hoping every night that you would go, oh, please let tonight be the night.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping that I was going to go home. But no, I don't think I ever voted against Justin. I thought Justin had told me that we were allies and that he was going to save me. So when I left, I obviously realised that that hadn't been the truth. And I probably should just correct myself when I've been saying that, Justin's a basic actor. That's actually not really fair, because I genuinely thought that we were allies. So he obviously did a good enough acting job on me. And, seriously, you would think that I should get over it. He was just playing the game. It's just that I think I kind of, I felt at the time with things that were going on in my personal life that I was sort of being used and abused a bit by a lot of people. And so, Justin sort of playing me almost from day one. And then to sort of what happened in the end, even though I did want to go, I didn't want to feel another sense of disloyalty, because I was feeling very paranoid and insecure in my own life. So I guess that I've hung on to or perceived his betrayal as, he was just playing the game. I get it.
Was there any of that towards David and Elton too? Because, of course, they had basically said that we will keep you to the merge, and then they basically... So, everyone in that situation had reneged on some sort of deal to you.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect too much of those two. Of course I didn't expect from David. Look, David's an interesting person. And I mean that very genuinely. He's a very kind of unique kind of character. But of course, I'd be pretty I wasn't so vulnerable at the time that I didn't realise that he was a politician, and I don't really have a high opinion on how most politicians behave. There's so much snaky and passive aggressive and just winning the game. So I didn't, in my memory, I don't remember being too shocked about that. I was probably a little bit hurt about Elton, because he was I saw him as such a nice guy, and, I was just on the wrong page. I just kept forgetting that we were there to play a game rather than just, hang out and be nice people to each other.
Well, you were that situation, we discussed it last week. If anything, you voting Fiona kind of sealed your fate, because as soon as Mocho lose the next one, David and Elton really don't owe you anything. They were going to do anything to save themselves. Yeah. They did. They got saved. And Justin, at the end of the day, well, he felt betrayed. What can he do? And even if he had voted with you and you'd both voted for David, had there been a tie, we don't know what the tiebreaker situation would have been that early in the game. It hadn't really been disclosed. So, you really were kind of damned and stuck in a corner at that point had you lost, and ultimately that's what happened.
Well, and also, I'm sure only Fiona would appreciate this comment, because, again, this is me forgetting that we're actually playing a game, and, obviously all of this sort of can happen. But, I guess what I did to Fiona, karma came and did the same, because I was surprised at being knifed by Justin, and she was surprised by being knifed by me. So, karma is about actually having the exact same feeling as what you did to another person, which makes you learn how it feels. So, yeah, essentially, in my little spiritual game that I might have been playing, I got done by karma.
It definitely was a big change in the game, because if Fiona didn't go home, it would have been David. And David goes on to be one of the biggest characters of this season. He really... And I think that's where David... his best gameplay is even though he is a politician and at the start people would have had this idea about him, he does come across as a very likable guy. Even on the show, he speaks very well. Yeah. And even Dicko, at the start of the season, Dicko's really trying to chip away at him. And by the end of it, it's almost like Dicko's in love with his bloke. And I guess that was I'm glad that David ended up lasting as long as he did and didn't go home early, because he really does shape this game.
Yeah, there is... there's obviously parts of David that, as I said, when he first came, I knew him through his association with Pauline Hanson and whatever their party was called, and I thought that was all pretty grotesque. And I didn't, I still have, when you ask me some questions about the challenges, I don't remember them, but then I will remember very clearly, like it was yesterday, spooning in the wet sand, with drops coming, overhead from the bloody banana leaves that were falling apart from this sort of shelter. I do remember lying there and feeling very confronted by the conversations that the boys were having about farting and about sex and about riding women and all of this stuff. Like, it was not appropriate conversation to be having in front of a woman when you're all alone. Like, thankfully, we live in a different time now, and that literally would be just called out so much, what I went through in that night. And even though I was pretty tough about it, I found that very unpleasant. But moving back to, so I didn't like that, and David was it was very Elton and David mainly in that, rather than Justin. But David definitely has, a lot of his personality is actually very, very likable. And there's almost some little part in him that's almost like this very vulnerable, loving little boy. Like, there's something about, there's definitely something. He's a very interesting man, and there is definitely something likable about him. And so I understand what Dicko probably, and Dicko's like a little boy too. He's just like, like me. So he probably sort of looked up to David in some way.
It's interesting how you mentioned about some of that talk wouldn't fly today. And we've actually talked about that throughout this season, that you can really tell this season was back in 2006, because even over in Kakula, where obviously Gabrielle Richards is there, she's a stunning, beautiful girl model, all that, always in a bikini. But even like with the guys in that, there's a lot of comments, and she laughs a lot of it off, and she seems to, by all means, joking around. She gets in on it too. But you fast forward 15 years later to 2021, that stuff wouldn't fly now. There's no way you could get away. So I guess it does show, it's a bit of a time capsule in the fact that what that era of time you could or could not say on TV or in general.
That's a really, really interesting perception. And I 100% true. And, it's, it really was a different era. And there was just so much that I think as a woman you had to put up with. And I would say, Gabrielle, she might have genuinely been fine with, comments from guys or whatever. But I think women, in whatever role we played in life, whether it was me working in the music industry, whether it was Gabrielle or Imogen, being bikini models for men's magazines, or whether you were, an account manager in an advertising agency, there was a level of having to deal with and having to have resilience over very uncomfortable, very inappropriate male behavior and male language around you. Like, we all had to, in varying degrees, put up with the bullshit of men. And it is interesting. We're in an interesting era where, publicly, certainly, it's being exposed and talked about. Privately, there's still a lot of bullshit going on, especially at places like advertising agencies, music industry, whatever. Like, there's still lots of exposure points there. But then there is also, some situations where maybe because I'm 50 and I come from a lot of those terrible eras, that I think some of the stuff that, maybe gets complained about is really a little too over the top. And it worries me that some men, good men, might be second guessing themselves in areas where they might not need to as much, So it is, but that's always when change happens, it can be extreme, and then it's got to be, defined down to where it makes a little bit more sense and it relaxes, but it's also more concrete in terms of, this is what we accept, this is what we don't accept. Anyone lying on a beach in a reality TV show, unless it's something designed to be as trashy and as inappropriate as possible, I should not have had to be lying next to guys talking about riding women and, all of that sort of, it was pretty disgusting. And also I kind of questioned myself, which a lot of other women I think would understand this feeling of, I questioned myself whether I was being too precious.
It's really interesting to hear that side of things. And one thing I know, I spoke to Imogen briefly last year when we spoke to her for the Australian Survivor Hall of Fame, and she briefly had mentioned that part of her accepting coming on to Celebrity Survivor was that she wasn't going to be the token bikini woman. She didn't want to be flaunted out there in a bikini on the beach. Like, she was completely against that. And ultimately she sort of mentioned that, you know, Gabrielle Richards clearly was that person, because we've commented a lot on our recaps that, you know, it's almost like Gabrielle Richards' body bingo. Like, the editors are going out of their way to show her, you know, sauntering on the beach and all these kind of things, which, I mean, it's a stark contrast to today. Whereas, I mean, I would almost say in Australian Survivor now, it's the complete opposite. They're doing it with the men. It's kind of like they won't even show like a woman on the beach now in a bikini. It's the complete opposite. So it's interesting. And it's definitely, like as Matt said, it is a bit of a time capsule watching this, because Matt and I are constantly going, well, yeah, no, that's not appropriate. I mean, not that it was appropriate back then, but we're more educated now. It's more in the limelight where we can sit here and go, no, that's not okay. Whereas back then we weren't saying that.
And I think that you're spot on, Ben, about being educated. I think back in the day, you know, even though, like you said, it's inappropriate, but women were more likely to laugh it off, and guys could think that it was okay, and they could go, oh, well, they're laughing about it, they're having a joke, they're on a joke. Where now, especially, you know, men, but women that are educated, well, don't take that. They speak up more, and guys now know that, well, you can't just say that and think they're going to laugh it off, because they're not going to laugh it off. They're going to speak up. And I think that's the difference between now and then.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of that grey area that we're talking about, you know, for me, like, for instance, like you said, like, as I said, I don't watch Survivor. I don't know what goes on, you know, how they shoot women. But if they are being very protective of women, then I would kind of be interested to know, okay, is that because that woman is uncomfortable? Like, or are you not shooting her going for a swim because that's sexist? Then that also could be a little crazy and over the top, because you're on a beach, you know, we know people wear bikinis, like, we shouldn't be getting, you know, but going up, you know, up and doing a bum, like, you know, Married at First Sight. So embarrassed that I'm saying that I watch it.
You mentioned it twice now, Amber. That's past your quota. You're only allowed to mention it once in this show.
Okay, so basically I have absolutely no integrity in this entire talk. But let me just use a little example there, if I may have just walked past the television at one point. But there was, like, one of the girls, you know, they were about to get in a spa or whatever they were doing, and going down the beach. Anyway, she had this tiny, you know, gorgeous, sort of very 1980s style bikini, in that there wasn't much of it. And also was like right up her ass, like, you know, G-string. So essentially just bum. And, you know, fine if that's her bikini of choice. But the camera, of course, is like, you know, he's over there. Oh, we'll just be here as we start this scene. And I just thought, okay, that's trashy. If she chooses to wear that, fine. Like, that's her decision. You being right there, I'm sorry, I see you. But then the other thing is, I saw on Instagram during the week Chelsea Handler skiing topless in a tiny little bikini, and she had her nipples. It was something about, like, I mean, I think there was some purpose, but, you know, she had an American and Canadian flag, you know, kind of covering her nipples, right? Can't remember what the point of it was. But, I mean, Chelsea loves her body. She's got a great body. That's good. You know, we should love our bodies. But I kind of, I was sort of like, oh, wow, I'd love to go. I mean, I can't ski to save myself. But if I could ski, God, I'd love to do it topless and with a little thing like that. But, you know, and so her putting it on Instagram really stands out so much in this day and age, not because there's not like a million girls doing selfies and bikini stuff, but it's just this very sort of, it was very sexy. It reminded me of the old, you know, the 70s and 80s kind of thing. And I thought, well, good on you. You love your body. You're not worried about shocking people. And why can't we all, like, if you like your body and you feel free, and it would be a lovely experience to be naked, like, but I think that would cause a lot of controversy.
Well, I'm proud to say, Amber, that I've gotten naked 3 times on Instagram. Once because of this show, I will say, thanks to...
I think I've seen you.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, no.
That was that direct message you sent me, I think.
Yeah, oh, Amber, sure, like, I'm married now. Shit, I'm going to get into trouble. Ah, crap. I knew people said it would last more than 2 months, but I guess they've lost that bet.
So. That's quite long for a relationship now.
But, yeah, it is.
So, Amber, if they ever do a celebrity version of Married at First Sight, you seem to be a fan. Any chance of maybe seeing you on that show?
Do you know what? No. But
How much are you getting paid though?
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's talk money first. No, no, but I have to be honest. I have watched it a little bit. Obviously, it's only just started, and I feel like so far there's a lot of genuine people on there that I really feel that they're genuinely looking for love. And I guess I am someone that knows that it is not hard to find the perfect person for you. And there was more of me kind of accepting, going, well, why not? Like instead of being horrified last time that, oh my God, what you're going to marry a stranger that, just trashes the sanctity of marriage. And, but this time I'm a bit like, that's such a bad idea. And then I was like, no.
Well, maybe if we ever run out of options and we have to do Married at First Sight archives, and when you've got your husband on there one day, we can do that. A couple of quick fire questions before we let you go, Amber. Yeah. You mentioned last time that you would never do this again, but I did love your quote where you said that I would be fucking brilliant at it if I did do it again. Now, you're obviously,
That's obviously the end of the bottle of wine.
Probably. But we can see it. We can see how that would improve. But, I mean, what would the fee be? I think you mentioned 30,000 was your fee last time. Are we talking 300,000 if Channel 10 gave you a phone call or something like that?
Oh, so I'm sorry. I've just got stuck on I'd be fucking brilliant at. I'm thinking, oh my God, like what a wanker. What part of it would you be brilliant at? Okay, no, because I know what I would have said that. I would have been, I'm good at reading, very good at reading people and playing people, and I don't have all this nervous insecurity going around, so I'd be much sharper and clearer. I'd still be shit in the water, so I wouldn't be bloody brilliant at it. So that was the wine talking.
And Amber, if you do go back on, can you please wear that Batman shirt that you're wearing right now?
Yes.
I love it on. You look perfect in it.
Yeah, it's good. It makes me feel powerful. No, there's still no amount of money that I wouldn't, no. And also I just sort of think I don't believe, I'll probably end up regretting this and sounding like a hypocrite. I don't really believe reality TV for me is where I'm at this far down the line. It was barely where I was at, minus the desire to get some money, and I didn't have much going on at the time. No, I can't see me doing it.
I definitely want to talk about your book before you let you go, because of course we did talk about that last time, and that was a while ago. So we definitely want to see where that's up to. But obviously, you got the money from the show and all that, but did anything else come from it? Like, were you looking for anything to come from it?
Yes, absolutely. Something came. Gosh, 100%. And I'm glad you asked that, because it's a nice story. I can't remember whether I told it last time, but so I didn't think anything really had come of it until I'm not sure that the show must have come out, but there was a lot of things happening in my personal life, and, I wasn't in a great place, and I'd left, some media jobs and what have you. So I was feeling a bit like shit, I've done this show and and I've got no real job. I've got no anything, So I was pretty desperate and really down on my luck. And I had always had, actually some of the Survivor gang had said, you really should be, try radio. Have you ever thought of that? And I was, a few people have, friends tell me, that I should do that. But I'd never really kind of taken it seriously. And I always in my head was very much hearing this voice saying, no, that's for other people. No, you wouldn't get that. No one would want you on radio and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so because I was really at such a sort of low point, and I really just thought like nobody was interested or cared about me whatsoever, I decided to track down the name of the biggest, the big boss at Southern Cross Stereo. And I thought, right, well, I'm just going to send him an email just saying, hi, look, you probably don't know who I am, but my name's Amber. I've done this and this and this. And look, I'd, just love to sort of throw my name in the hat, if you're ever looking for, a female radio talent or whatever I said. And I just sent it off, and I just kind of went, well, there you go. I've had a crack. I've done what I can. I'm sure I won't hear back from him. And then 2 days later, I got a reply, which I literally almost fell off my chair. I just couldn't believe that he'd come back. And I really braced myself for him to say, politely, thanks, but no thanks. And it was sort of showing some interest. And by the time when I ended up sitting down with him, because he was quite interested in me as radio talent, or to trying it out, he said that one of his favourite producers, who ended up being my radio producer, had watched the series and had said to him, oh yeah, she's really cool and chicks love her.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know that that's true, but wow. So so unwittingly, this, very influential, fantastic woman in radio had then mentioned me to literally the most powerful guy in FM radio. And that began the journey of me ending up doing radio and broadcasting and, for, podcast and talk back and, becoming a huge part of my life.
Wow, Amber, I've been sending that guy emails for 17 years. He's never bloody replied to me. You got one in 2 days, so...
Well, he's actually not there anymore, but he was tough to get into, and he was always getting emails.
Wow. See, Matt, I need to get on Survivor, last 2 days like you, and then maybe he'll know who I am. So, that works.
But you know what? I have, obviously, because, there's been so much reality TV in the last 15 years, it's anyone that thinks that they're going to get an ongoing gig from a TV show, they're probably kidding themselves, because it has become very much a 15 minutes. And unless you're really smart and you have something unique to offer and you shake that reality image and you just get down to the basics of, I'm a good presenter, so people forget that and just see you as legitimately good at whatever that role is. You're kidding yourself. It doesn't, I don't think it works.
Because the opposite path is you either get a good career at Southern Cross or Stereo, or you get voted off Survivor. After 2 days, you end up fucking doing a podcast with me. So that's kind of
just put me out of my misery now, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Amber, we know we've got to go. I've got 3 super quick questions for you. All right, this is the super quick fire ones. Now, we had David Mason tell us a story about a contestant who went to Dicko's room after they were voted out. They did a massive turd, blocked his toilet up, and left. David wouldn't tell us who it was. We're asking everyone. Was that you, Amber?
Yes, it was.
Really? Wow, that's a quick question. Wow, okay. All right. Wow, maybe we're going to have to keep you for an extra 5 minutes.
Slightly exaggerated.
I was not expecting this.
Wait, okay.
I was not.
Wait, I think it was me. Okay. Because I remember I went to his because we'd arranged to go out for dinner. He was gorgeous. He's like, you've got to come out for dinner. You've done so well, blah, blah, blah. So I went to his hotel room, obviously nothing sleazy, whatever. And I think it was before I even got my own room or something, because I was that fresh off the island. And so I had a shower, and I remember having this magnificent experience in his bathroom, because it was the first time I washed my hair. I had all my girly products. I had a mirror, and I put my white dress on, and I remember looking in the mirror, and I was like so slim but golden, and suddenly all of the ugliness and detoxification that goes on, on the show, I'd come good. And I remember just going, oh my God, I've never looked so good in my entire life. So I was having a bit of a moment with myself in the bathroom. Of course, Dicko, bless him, bought me a packet of Winfield that I properly smoked my way through by the end of, practically dinner. So I felt like shit and looked like shit by the next morning. But I probably may have done a poo, but the reason why I say yes, it was me, was because I found out later that he had said that about me on his national radio show. I think it was national or Sydney, and I was friggin' mortified.
Wow!
Because I just thought, and my boyfriend at the time heard it through someone, or somehow it came through, the guy that I was saying. So I was really embarrassed because I'm not a talk poo, fart type of girl. Like all of that's like, I'm a bit girly like that. I'm like, we don't do any of that. Girls don't fart. They don't do, poo. So I was mortified. Anyway, so I sent a text message to Dicko saying, did you really say this about me? Because I can take a lot of jokes, but it was just that particular thing, and thinking people were thinking that of me. It just didn't sit well with me then. And so I had a crack at him in the text message because, of course, we were on a really, nice sort of thing. And I know now I was early to radio too, so I didn't see that, of course, it's so typical of radio people to go, here's something shocking and inappropriate, and, oh, no. He was just doing his job and clearly running out of things to say if that was actually supposed to be a good, what they call in radio, rave. Anyway, he ended up sending me a big bunch of flowers and a pie.
Well,
he knew he'd been cheap. So, so bottom line is I would assume he didn't make that up completely, though. Working in radio, as you guys would probably know, it gets to a point when you've run out of so many stories, you do start making shit up, or you start telling stories that someone else. Stealing stories. So I think maybe I did a big poo in his toilet, but it's very unlike me to forget. But as I said, I was so busy having a moment with myself in that mirror that I may have forgotten that I had a little flow to go.
So I was not in a million years, like when I asked you that question, thinking it would be you. Like, my money was on Justin. I think Matt's was on Guy. So, yeah, wow.
Oh,
jeez.
My God, I thought, here we go. They've,
that was a quick mystery gone, Matt. Wow.
I'm surprised Ben even asked you. We were going to save it for later on.
I'm glad I've done my job. Amber, again, really quickly, your book, is it out? You mentioned last time we interviewed you that it was coming out in 2020. Is it out? Can people get it?
Okay, so my book, which is called This Is Not a Love Song, which is available for pre-order now through Booktopia. It is coming out officially on the 26th of April.
Great.
Which is very exciting. And I'm launching it by being a Stella magazine cover girl with a feature story in it. So I know. I mean, seriously,
this celebrity gig's paying off. Anna who? Anna Corner what? What's the name?
15 years later, I've finally got myself a magazine cover.
Bloody hell. Well done. Good job. Final question, Amber. The token Mary question. I know she's a Tasmanian girl. Have you been to Tasmania with her? If so, what's your favourite spot in Tasmania?
Oh, yes, I've been. It's the only, I shouldn't say the only reason why I've been to Tasmania, but I went to Tasmania and I've always been to Tasmania predominantly with her, because of her and with her, and only one time for work. Oh, God, Tasmania is unbelievable. I will say I had an experience of going down the Gordon River on this magnificent boat that we were sleeping on and having dinner on, and we pulled up for the night outside a place called Hell's Gate, which I was just friggin' terrified about because apparently there's convicts lived there and it was very brutal times.
There's a few horror movies I believe have been set there. So
they have, yeah. So I was like, why on earth is the whole river? Why are we pulling up here? I'm going to sleep with bloody one eye open all night. But yes, I think the Gordon River, and I've got a big soft spot for the Salamanca markets.
Good answer. There you go. You're taking me back.
And I've only been to Launceston, so I
doesn't
really don't
count
know.
as Tasmania. That's
no, it does. Launceston, actually, sorry, I've been to a lot there. There's 2 times, that we're my friend related, and Launceston, and the Gorge and all of the, they've got a couple of really old pubs there. Beautiful.
Okay, you said Married at First Sight a couple of times, and you're saying Launceston's beautiful land, but we're out of time. I will say that I've had fun until that part, and we really do appreciate your time and coming back. I
told you I get boring when I don't drink.
Yeah, well, I think you are drunk. You're saying Launceston's beautiful, but in all seriousness, we were so looking forward to getting you back on and talking. We had a blast last time, and I know that this was one of the ones I was definitely looking forward to the most. So I will say, and I'll hand it over to Matt to wrap it up, but I enjoyed every second of this one until the final few. So thank you very much, Amber, for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love the first one and I love the second one.
Yeah, and I'll second what Ben says. You're an absolute hoot every time we get you on. I love hearing all your stories. I love finding out that possibly the toilet incident may have been you. But honestly, Amber, I wish you all the best for your book coming out, and I'll definitely be getting it myself. So I think you're a fascinating person. I'm definitely going to be interested to see what you're like as an author.
Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to listening to this series. And I'm definitely interested in listening to Fiona. There's a few I probably won't bother, but yeah, there's a few that I will. But yeah, good on you. It's awesome. Thank you for having me back.